Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. This is Zini tutorial. Today I shall be talking about chapter 6 to 10 of Elma's Redemption Road. Like I promised some of my subscribers that I'm going to continue this summary. Please, if you have not subscribed to my YouTube channel, please kindly click on the subscription button, like and share to get more contents. And if you're a returning subscriber, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to like and share. So I shall be talking about chapter 6 to 10, the summary, detailed summary of Elma's Redemption Road. Chapter 6. The next day, Agnes comes to pick up Bendu for work as she had promised the previous day. Bendu tells Agnes that she plans to prosecute Commander Cobra for war crimes. But Agnes disagrees with Bendu on that, telling her that it is going to be impossible to prosecute Commander Cobra. By the time they get to PIP's office, unknowingly to Bendu, Agnes has sent for Siata, Bendu's sister, and Calvin to serve as a form of support to Bendu after the traumatic encounter she had when she sighted Commander Cobra. Calvin promises Bendu that he will arrange security guards at her office and her house. Bendu tells Calvin and Siata that she wants to prosecute Commander Cobra for war crimes. Unlike Agnes, Siata agrees with Bendu, while Calvin assures Bendu that he would find Commander Cobra. That's the end of chapter 6 summary. Then chapter 7 summary. Moses Vani, also known as Commander Cobra, is ushered into the judiciary chambers for the second time this week to see Judge Solomon Dagoshi. Moses Vani refers to Judge Dagoshi as the most corrupt character in the Justice Department, but Vani has no option but to work with him, that's to do business with him, since he is the only one who can help them. He's the only one who can help them. The payment Vani makes to Judge Dagoshi will take care of several things like manpower, security for getting supplies to the people, and above all, the power that they need to finally change the living and working conditions of the poorest Liberians. That's the end of chapter 7. That's the transaction, the business Moses Vani, also known as Commander Cobra, has with Judge Dagoshi, one of the most corrupt people in the Justice Department. Chapter 8, summary of chapter 8 of Redemption Road by Elma Shaw. True to his words, Calvin was relentless in his search for Commander Cobra as he had promised Bendu. Siata had asked her husband Terence to assist in finding Cobra, but he had declined. Bendu, on the other hand, had resumed her normal activities with encouragement and support from Siata and Agnes, even though she still had her nightmares about Duluma every night. Though in a way, the nightmares had become useful because they brought back details of events she was forgetting, and it strengthened her resolve to prosecute Cobra if it was ever found. Siata and Bendu visited Calvin in his place in Congo Town off Tubman Boulevard about a week she sighted Cobra. Calvin had promised them a relaxing afternoon by the pool side. From gisting about their teenage years, the conversation turned to their current lives. As Siata began to ask about old friends from the past, they began to talk about the unpleasant but an unavoidable topic of the war. So many people they knew were in exile. Some missing, including a whole football team they used to sponsor back then. Calvin called it a war for survival, where women and children had to join factions and carry arms in order to save themselves, in order to survive. Bendu's mind dates back to Agnes, who was nicknamed Mama Don't Care during the war because she was a vicious killer. In spite of her sweet nature, they all spoke at length about the war until they dispersed to their homes. That's the end of chapter 8. Now we move to the summary of chapter 9. Chapter 9 starts with a flashback at Duluma, the morning after the fighters dragged Bendu, leaving her grandma dead by the roadside. Commander Cobra wakes up, smokes his marijuana while cleaning his gun, loads the gun, and tests it on two unlucky men who didn't even have the time to beg for their lives. Bendu gives the reader a vivid description of Duluma. Bendu is seen asking Mamusu, an older woman who is 54 years and very friendly, why Commander Cobra killed the two men. She tells Bendu she doesn't have any idea, but also informs Bendu that among all the leaders in Duluma, Commander Cobra is the most disciplined and the most feared. Mamusu attends to Bendu's swollen hand that was hit by a gun by Samson on the day she was captured. Mamusu also tells Bendu that Cobra is a good man when he's not smoking. When he's not smoking his drugs. Bendu asks Mamusu questions about her family, and where the readers are told that Mamusu's husband was killed and her two sons taken away, but her two daughters are with her at Duluma. Bendu in return tells Mamusu her own story about her capture, that she was spending some time with her grandmother, that's Grandma May, at Grandma Cousin Rebecca Johnson's place on the day before Bendu and her grandma were supposed to leave Somerville and head back to Morovia. They heard the rebels were close by. Cousin Rebecca decided she, her children and grandchildren will stay indoors. They also wanted Bendu and Granny May to stay too, especially since Granny May was not feeling well. But Bendu had insisted she wanted to leave for Morovia. The next day, her cousin Orlando, despite his grandmother's pleas, cousin Rebecca, escorted them to the park where they would board a bus to Morovia. At the park, the whole place was deserted. Orlando, feeling uneasy, had urged them to start heading back to the house. Bendu and Granny May were reluctant to head back to cousin Rebecca's house. Granny May was already tired, so she felt so reluctant to go back, and she was sick too. After an hour or two, they heard several vehicles approaching towards their direction. They tried to hide, but they were not fast enough. The men in the jeeps jumped out quickly, grabbed Orlando, ripped his shirt off him, tied him up, and threw him into the back of one of the pickup vans, just as they did to other young boys. They captured other young boys who were in the pickup vans. The two women were ushered into the car. Bendu and Granny May were taken to Charlie Town and were informed by the men that they were keeping Orlando. All the pleas by Bendu and Granny May fell on deaf ears, and Orlando was crying like a baby. In Charlie Town, Granny May's fever became worse and needed urgent medical care. While Bendu was narrating our deal to Mamusu, suddenly they heard footsteps at the door. Mamusu signaled to Bendu to lie down and keep quiet. Commander Cobra had sent Joseph and some men to call Bendu. Mamusu tried stopping Joseph, but he insisted, so Bendu had no option than to follow them. At the door of Commander Cobra's tent, she meets Samson, who is on guard outside of Commander Cobra's tent. But he doesn't take note of her because he's already high on drugs. Joseph gently pushes Bendu inside the tent. Cobra will be Duluma, and also she will need to make herself useful in Duluma. She asks Cobra what she could do. Suddenly, Cobra calls out to Samson, who is outside, and tells Samson that Bendu is his new wife. Bendu is stunned, unable to believe she had just been given away like a piece of property. Samson drags Bendu to his own hut and he sexually molests her. She manages to give him one strong blow to the eye, with blood oozing from his eyes. And that is how she earned her one name, Lieutenant Technical Knockout. The summary of chapter 10. Back to reality, Bendu wakes up from her sleep. She was home in Morovia and not in Duluma, and she gave thanks to God. She was home in Morovia and not in Duluma with Samson. Later in the morning, she goes to the supermarket and hears someone with a familiar voice calling her name. Miss Louise, Miss Louise, Miss Louise. Crossing the street and coming towards her was Commander Cobra. Before she could respond, he reaches out and hugs her as if they were old friends. He asks her if they could hang out, but she tries to say no, but says yes. He tells her he's staying at Elma on Carey Street. He writes down his room and phone numbers on a slip of paper from his wallet and hands it to her. He addresses her as Lieutenant Technical Knockout. Remember how the name came about back then in Duluma. But she quietly but firmly tells him not to address her by that one name again. He agrees with her, laughs about it, and playfully punches her on the shoulder. He tells her he goes by the name Moses Vanny. So when she's coming, she should just ask of Fee. That is the end of the summary of chapters 6 to 10. Please kindly subscribe to get more videos when I post. Like and share. For my returning subscribers, I just want to thank you so much and I appreciate you. Bye and see you next time.